Should be any minute now. Preparing to live stream. Okay, we're on.
All right, hold up a second. All right. So we're not gonna have Rick for, we're gonna have to wait on bringing up that old business. Sorry about that, Attorney Casagrande. We'll go as quick as we can. We'll try to get that in only because we have 6. So we'll just go right according to the schedule that we have right now. And then we'll try and shift gears. There we go. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Commission, City of Danbury, March 8th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Let the record show we will begin with the roll call at 7:38 p.m. Commissioner Coelho.
Here.
Commissioner David.
Here.
Commissioner Fay.
Here.
Commissioner Hawley.
Here.
Commissioner Hylinski called, she's absent. Commissioner Jowdy is running late. We'll put him down for absent until he shows up. Commissioner Malillo.
Here.
Commissioner Rea is absent. Commissioner Bennett is absent. Commissioner Duran is absent. Commissioner Mejia is absent. And I'm Commissioner Haddad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 tonight. Excuse me. For the record, the next regular meeting is scheduled for March 22nd, 2022. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic
which stands
to the republic,
One
a
nation.
nation
Under
under God,
stands,
indivisible,
liberty,
liberty,
under
justice,
God,
justice,
indivisible.
and for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let me read into Zoom instructions. This meeting of the Danbury Zoning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and the video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Please be aware that we may have to mute your microphone or telephone to avoid an echo or some other background noise. This is also being streamed live via YouTube. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website. And all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions, please contact the City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. Prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items were submitted via email to Sharon Calitro. Those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Please remember that technology glitches sometimes do occur. Please be patient if that happens. Commission members, everyone received a copy of the January 25th 2022 minutes. Like a motion or hear comments on that. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Motion made by Commissioner David to approve the minutes of January 25th. Is there a second? Anyone second to the minutes?
Second.
It's not confusing. Unless it is and I'm missing something. There's a second by Ms. Fay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are accepted. Legal notice for this evening, legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the zoning commission of the city of Danbury will hold public hearings commencing at 7:30 PM on Tuesday, March 8th, 2022, in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to consider the following matters. Number one, petition of the city of Danbury by Sharon B. Calitro, planning director, to amend section 3C of the zoning regulations, in parentheses, amendment pursuant to Public Act 21-29, opt out of the requirement for the allowance of accessory apartments as of right on each lot that contains a single-family dwelling. Number two, application of Sugar Hollow Realty LLC property owners for Nissan of Danbury LLC, 13 Sugar Hollow Road, G17008, for a certificate of location approval for a motor vehicle new car dealer's license in the CG20 zone. Copies of these applications are on file in the Planning and Zoning Office for public inspection. Parties and interests and citizens shall have the opportunity to be heard at this time. Agenda to be posted will include instructions on how to access the Zoom meeting and application materials and/or view the meeting in real time on YouTube. Theodore J. Haddad Jr. Chairman, posted on the city's website and town clerk's office on February 23rd, 2022. It's also published in the News Times on February 25th, 2022. And March 4th, 2022, purchase order number 2021-174.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Mr. Jowdy is here.
Mr. Jowdy, I don't see you. There you are. Let the record show at 7:43. Mr. Jowdy is here.
Not bad.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jowdy. Well, we have, I think, as many as we're going to get. So considering Attorney Casagrandi's schedule, I'd like to see if I can have someone make a motion to move old business for discussion, possible action, a petition of the city of Danbury by Sharon B. Calitro, planning director, to amend section 10C4A2 of zoning regulations, in parentheses, amendment pursuant to Public Act 2129, amend language and additional requirements for approval of special exceptions and special permits relative to the use of the word character. Note, amendments to section 3C and 10B2 included in this petition were approved on January 25th, 2022. I'd like a motion to move this to before the first public hearing this evening. Can I get that as a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Coelho, thank you. Makes a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Fay, was that your hand or was it?
Second.
Is your hand. Second by Mr. David. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Not hearing any negative, unanimous. So we're going to call on Attorney Casagrande. He's going to briefly discuss the letter that he sent in to all of us. We have as an exhibit. It's dated March 2nd, 2022. Attorney Casagrande.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everyone. I intend to be very brief. I know that the commission members have had the letter for several days. It is, I don't intend to read it. My goal is just to summarize the high points because I think the letter is fairly self-explanatory. As you know, Public Act 2129 amends Section 8-2 of the General Statutes, which is the enabling act for zoning in Connecticut. And what it did was essentially removed the word character from the considerations that a zoning commission or a planning commission may consider in considering special permits and special exceptions, and substituted for that the words physical site characteristics of the district. The legislative history is fairly clear, and we did a fairly exhaustive deep dive into it to try to understand where the General Assembly was coming from. And I have basically two general conclusions from it. One, obviously the zoning commission is bound by 8-2. It has to follow 8-2, which is the enabling statute, and its zoning regulations cannot be inconsistent with enabling statute. So that I believe in our opinion that the commission has no choice but to adopt the language suggested by Sharon Calitro in the petition in order to conform the 10C4 special permit and special exception requirements to the amended 8-2. Second, it's clear from the legislative history that the legislature had, I guess, two concerns. One was that the word character is, as some members on the floor put it, is too vague and amorphous, and it also potentially allows a commission to engage in improper considerations involving discrimination based on race. It's not entirely clear to me from the legislative history as to examples. I don't think there were really any examples that were given, but the consensus of those who spoke to the bill was that they were concerned that by just having the word character in there, it could encourage improper decision-making that was based on racial considerations. But third, and most importantly, in my opinion, the legislative history also makes clear that the intent of the amendment is not to materially curb the discretion of the zoning commission or the planning commission when they decide applications for special permits in the case of the zoning commission and special exceptions in the case of the planning commission. And I don't have the letter in front of me, but I'm quoting from one of the sponsors of the bill who said that all reasonable aspects of character as allowed under 8-2 will still be permissible considerations for a planning commission and a zoning commission in deciding on special permit and special exception applications. And those considerations as set forth in 8-2 explicitly include preserving the historic character of a district, addressing environmental impacts where appropriate, the density of the district, the location of the use in the district, the suitability of the use for the district, which is a very broad term, but it's routinely cited by courts as a proper consideration when you're considering a special permit and a special exception. That remains. Also, the considerations of the effect on a proposed use on property values, traffic safety, traffic congestion, parking, noise, glare, etc. All of those considerations are unaffected by the legislation. And lastly, the commission, as set forth in our regs, and as the courts have said over decades of jurisprudence on these types of applications, the commission has always has the ability to consider general concepts of the public health, safety, and welfare in deciding whether or not to grant or deny a special permit or special exception application. So for those reasons, I feel comfortable in saying that number one, you don't have a choice. You have to adopt the language as recommended in the petition. But number two, I don't think you should be concerned that adoption is going to materially limit the discretion of a commission in considering special permits and special exceptions for the reasons cited in the legislative history. So with that, I think that summarizes my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Casagrande. What I'd like to do for purposes of discussion is to put a motion on the floor. Then we can ask Attorney Casagrande questions rather than doing it now before there's any formal way. I'd be looking for a motion to approve the petition to amend section 10C4A2 as proposed for the following reasons, which such reasons may be expanded further as we may find after discussion with Corporation Counsel. That the amendment received a positive referral from the Planning Commission, and the amendment was prepared in accordance with PA 21-29 and amended section 8.2. Is there anyone willing to make that motion for purposes of discussion? Anyone? Anyone willing to make a motion for purpose of discussion with separate reasons? If not, I'll make that motion and I'll look for a second.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I don't believe the chairman has the authority to make a motion.
How long should I wait? If it just doesn't work, it doesn't work. Is that what you're saying?
I believe without a motion, it dies
Okay.
and would
You-
therefore need to be either re-brought up later or listed on another agenda item.
Got it. Thank you. I'll wait again and see if we can find anyone here willing to make that motion. I'll give it a couple seconds.
Ted, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
So we're making a motion to do what? Say it again.
Well, in order for us to have
Hello?
discussion on, whoops. In order for us to have discussion on the motion, we would be looking for discussion on the petition or the remainders of that petition, the third section of that petition. The first two was already approved. I would look to have a motion put on the floor first to approve with reasons, with a second, then we can go into discussion. It's not, and then we'll see if it flies or not.
Well, I'll make a motion so we can have a discussion.
That's fine. Thank you.
We'll
Is there a
have a
second for
discussion
that?
about it. Okay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jowdy. Motion made with reasons as I stated and by Mr. David, second by Mr. Jowdy. Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, are we voting on the motion right now without discussion?
I asked her if there was any discussion on the motion.
And it went really quickly.
Okay. I thought I counted to three. Is there any
Well, I was
discussion on the motion?
thinking, I
That's okay.
thought at first you were looking to see if there was any questions for Attorney Casagrande, which is why I didn't say anything. I was looking to see if anybody had questions for Attorney
Well,
Casagrande.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask Attorney Casagrande once we had a motion, and we can then ask Attorney Casagrande any questions that we have or to discuss his letter. So we have a
But
motion with a
However,
second.
now, Mr. Chairman, I believe the motion on the floor is a motion to approve. If we vote on this motion without discussion, we are voting to approve without discussion.
I asked if there was any discussion on the motion.
Right,
And
and you just said if
so-
you had some questions for Attorney Casagrande after we made the motion. So I'm confused here if you are looking for questions for Attorney Casagrande, if you have some questions for Attorney Casagrande yourself, or if you are looking for discussions just on the motion in general.
I'm looking for a discussion on the motion in general. Any discussions on the motion in general?
I have something under discussion from the motion in general.
Go ahead.
I would like to put on the record that I intend to vote against the motion to approve. First off, I'm not really thrilled with the idea of Hartford dictating Danbury policies, especially in this instance. Hartford, I believe, gave us an opportunity to define the word character rather than remove the word character. I would rather see us define the word character, especially since in the public hearing, public representatives from Danbury, whom we were elected to represent, brought up in the public hearing opposition to removing the word character. And therefore, I feel as though we should adhere to the people who elected us, leave the word character, consider defining the word character, recognizing what the state legislature defines it as and looking at it and then keeping it that way rather than removing it.
Any other discussion on the motion? Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Any other discussion on the motion?
I'm trying to clarify here.
David,
Yeah. So we can opt out and not be in any legal hassle. It's just that we're defining what we see as character, that we're not discriminating with using the word character.
So
Mr.
that-
Chairman, Mr.
that's
Chairman,
yes, Ms. Calitro.
this portion of the petition has there's no opt-out provisions associated with it.
Mr. David,
That was only associated with the parking and the accessory,
Fees.
I'm sorry, the parking in that petition. You could opt out of the parking requirement. There's no opt-out provision of the use of the word character.
So you just deny this petition. Is that, if you're not interested in,
if that's the way it goes, sure.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask Ms. Calitro, if I remember correctly, we do have the option, as was stated at an earlier meeting in the public hearing, that we do have the option of defining the word character. You just recommended that until that was done, we did not cite the word character in any actions taken by this commission. Would that be correct?
I think I said that unless it was explicitly, I have to go back to my notes from there. Explicitly defined, which, again, Attorney Casagrande's memos incorporated things that could be considered when you're defining the word character.
Right, so we could, so
It
instead of
wouldn't limit you
removing,
from considering those things.
yeah, so instead of removing the word character, we could amend our regulations to define the word character, which would allow us to leave the word character in there. And you would just caution us against referring to the word character until it was defined in our zoning regulations.
I don't know that I recommended leaving the word character in there.
I don't want to say you recommended it. I believe you said that we could if we so choose to, but you would advise us not to use the word character until it was defined to bring us into compliance with the regulations.
Again, any definition that I think I would, and I don't know because I hadn't really thought about bringing something back to you, would only be considering the things Attorney Casagrande indicated in an opinion from Corporation Counsel that you could consider to be things associated or in a determination of character. So if he's saying they're already there and you can still use them, what would be the purpose of then defining it? We have a letter from legal counsel that says those are the things that you could consider, and based on the legislative intent.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because the public representatives in the public hearing suggested that there was a difference between the word character and the word physical characteristics. And there were some members on the commission that thought maybe there would be differences between those two, which is why we had some discussion a couple months ago about possibly amending the word character rather than removing it.
You have an opinion from Corporation Counsel.
So what happens when our regulations don't match up with the state and this comes up in a future hearing or something? Does our decision get thrown out when they automatically opt to the state regulations? What would happen in that situation?
I'll defer to Attorney Casagrande.
Attorney Casagranде, please.
You choose to adopt this petition, you're still bound by the language of the state statute. So if a special exception application came before the Planning Commission, my advice to them was, regardless of whether you change the regulation, you're still bound by the amendment to the statute, which says that character, to the extent that term means anything, should only mean physical character of the district. Height, structure, aesthetic, those kinds of things. But having said that, as I indicated in my opinion, the commission, in considering a special exception application, may still employ the same standards that I itemized earlier, and that the amendment does not materially curb your discretion in taking those standards into account.
Are you good, Mr. Hawley?
Yeah, I'm good.
He's
Yep.
good. Any other questions? Commission members at this time. Attorney Fay, you had some concern about it in the beginning too. Anything from you tonight?
No, I'm not inclined to try and, well, I am inclined to try and align, obviously, our decisions with the legislative intent in the statute. I don't believe that the classification, generally, even though it's such a slight distinction that I don't even know that our commission is able to make that distinction on every petition that's presented in front of us in terms of character and physical characteristics. I think there could be a better way to do it, and perhaps how Commissioner Melillo, suggests that we could define character within our own zoning regulations so that we wouldn't run into any, to use Milan's word, legal hassle later. It would be clear so that we would know that it was a non-discriminatory reason, non-discriminatory intent, and that this commission could use that word as we always have, as most zoning commissions have, with that discretion, because it's clearly it's clearly a zoning word, a regular tool in our dictionary to say a characteristics of the neighborhood and consistent with themes and things like that. So I don't know that just trying to mirror image the state statute would be in our best interest.
Thank you very much. Any comments, Ms. Calitro, on that?
No.
Okay. Any other comments, commission members? So there's a motion. It seems like we've already had our discussion. I don't even know if this motion is going to make it tonight. But there is a motion to approve the petition with reasons for possible discussion. Well, looking backward, we did. With a second. So I would do a roll call on this.
Well, hey, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm
Mr.
gonna
Mayor.
withdraw my motion because I just made the motion so we could discuss it. And
Who was the second on that? We'll look
you
to see
know,
if the second,
I'd
will the
like
second
to see-
withdraw their second? Yes, Mr. Milan, fine. So there is no motion right now. I'd ask again, is anyone willing to make a motion? Anyone willing to make a motion? Anyone willing to make a motion? There is no one willing to make a motion at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a
I-
question? of Ms.
Yeah, I
Calitro?
think, give me 1 second, Ms. Malou. I think what'll happen is, and maybe this is your question, I think this will just get carried over again to the next meeting. It'll remain on the agenda.
I would-
Mr. Malillo.
That's along my lines. I'm just curious as to what the timetable we have and what will happen if we don't take action on this item in that time frame.
Well, the petitioner can always grant an extension, but in more depth on that, Ms. Calitro?
Yeah, that you would need to, the first 65 days, since the close of the hearing is next week. So I'd have to consider granting an extension or not.
Or not?
And what would happen if the extension was not granted?
Gosh, I think Attorney Casagrande, I had my own opinion on this, but
Well,
why don't we call on you?
if the extension were not granted, then you'd have to decide it within the period that you're allotted. But I will say that this is a legislative decision. It's not a site plan or a special exception. And I believe the law on deciding site plans and special exceptions within a certain period of time says that if you don't do it, then you're deemed to have automatically approved the petition. I
Right.
do not believe that law applies on legislative determinations or to legislative decisions on whether to amend the regulations. I'd have to do a little bit more research on that to confirm that. But as I said, even if you don't adopt the amendment, you're still bound by the statute, which, as I say, I don't view as a major impediment to the commission's exercising the traditional powers they've had all along for decades on these applications. I don't know if that answers the question.
Mr. Malillo, again, please.
So Attorney Casagrande, are you saying, because you're not fully certain about this, that there could be a possibility that if we don't take action on this petition this evening and the city of Danbury does not extend an extension for us to take action, then theoretically there is a possibility that this could be approved without us taking action?
I would say it's highly unlikely, but I'm not going to give you a drive-by opinion. I need to confirm it.
So we would be rolling the dice to see what would happen. And we meet 2 weeks from now, which is after the timetable. So we would have to roll the dice to see, hope that your opinion would allow us to do that.
Well,
Or we could have the city extend.
let's put it this way. If I do the research in the next day or so, and I confirm that, oh, yes, if you don't act on it within the time period and Ms. Calitro does not consent to an extension, then it's deemed to be automatically approved. I imagine, and I'm not going to speak for Sharon, that she probably would say, well, I'll give you an extension, so you're not in that Hobson's choice.
Mr. Malillo, you good with the answer? Or do we just simply want to ask Ms. Calitro to give an extension to the 23rd of March tonight? Our meeting is on the 22nd.
Please,
She grants an
please.
extension to the 23rd.
Mr. Chairman, I'll give you an extension to the 23rd, 22nd, whatever the meeting is.
Meeting.
Or we
Or
could move to
based on,
tonight.
or, yeah,
I'm sorry,
you
Ms.
could.
Fay. Say Ms. Fay.
Yeah, you could.
I just don't want you to have all the power, Sharon. I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying you could deny it tonight. Yeah, no, I don't have any. I mean, you have the power. I don't have the power. I'm just saying, with all due respect, and
Better to have.
with all due respect to the commission, I mean, is anything going to change in 2 weeks? So but let's get an answer from Attorney Casagrande. It's 2 weeks. We've waited since January, so it's fine. I have no issue with that. We'll vote in March at the next meeting in March. You'll vote, not we'll vote. You'll vote at the next meeting in March.
All right, sounds good. Attorney Casagrande, if you do that, we have commission members, we have a commitment of an extension to the 22nd of March. Good?
Yes.
Good.
Good. The first petition this evening is a petition of the city of Danbury. Thank you, Attorney Casagrande and Attorney Edwards. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
First petition, first public hearing this evening is a petition of the city of Danbury by Sharon B. Calitro, planning director to amend section 3C of the zoning regulations, amendment pursuant to Public Act 21-29, opt out of the requirement for the allowance of accessory apartments as of right on each lot that contains a single family dwelling. Let me read the planning commission recommendation. 8-3A referral to Theodore J. Haddad Jr., Chairman of Danbury Zoning Commission, from Arnold E. Finaldi Jr., Chairman, Danbury Planning Commission. 8-3A referral. Petition of the City of Danbury by Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend Section 3C of the zoning regulations, amendment pursuant to Public Act 21-29, opt out of the requirement for the allowance of accessory apartments as of right on each lot that contains a single family dwelling. At the web-based Zoom meeting held on February 3rd, 2022, the City of Danbury Planning Commission voted to give the above referenced petition a positive recommendation for the following reason. The City of Danbury is best positioned to address the housing needs of its residents and promulgate regulations based on local demographics, housing conditions, and economic circumstances. The motion to give this a positive recommendation was made by Mr. Uri, second by Mr. Chioccio, and passed by voice vote with 4 ayes from Mr. Chioccio, Mrs. Hofstadter, Mr. Uri's, and Chairman Finaldi. We did put this out to WestCog. The opinion of WestCog staff is that the proposal is of local interest with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to the adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment. That was dated January 31st. Ms. Calitro, staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this petition, again, was prepared pursuant to, or as a result of Public Act 2129, which again was approved in June of 2021 and provided revisions to the State Zoning Enabling Act. And this petition addresses Section 6 of PA 2129. And basically it says that unless a municipality decides to opt out of these provisions, the provisions prohibit regulations. Well, I shouldn't say that. Excuse me. The section would provide for an allowance of accessory apartments in every zone and on every lot where and as of right, a single family dwelling is permitted. So in Danbury, that means an accessory apartment would be allowed in every single family zone in the LCI 40, the CN5, the CN20, the CBD, and the CRP zones. The Public Act also places limits on restrictions and other conditions of approval for accessory apartments, including familial occupancy, as of right processing, unit size, and requiring the unit to be affordable. The language that I'm proposing to add is underlined in the staff report, which would be the new section 3C7 state mandated allowance for accessory apartments. And basically says, notwithstanding the provisions of 2129, the zoning commission affirmatively opts out. And the reasons why requesting the commission do that is, while the new law appears to provide for increased housing opportunities in all of Connecticut municipalities, because again, this act applies to 169 communities. The city of Danbury is best positioned to address the needs of its the housing needs of its residents, and to promulgate regulations based on our own demographics and our housing conditions and our economic circumstances. As some of you may remember, up until 2015, we did have an accessory apartment provision in the zoning regulations, but there were some abuses to that by a local property owner, and the zoning commission at that point decided to delete the provision for accessory apartments. I could tell you that staff, myself and my staff, has been working with the city's Affordable Housing Plan Committee, which is the committee that's charged with preparation of our mandatory affordable housing plan. It's required by statutes under 8-30J. It'll be adopted before June of this year. And that committee, we've had discussions in that committee about ways to increase housing opportunities across the board for all income ranges, but affordable units in particular. And there's been discussion about a strategy to implement or bring back an accessory apartment regulation. And again, it's our position and the position of that committee that we're in the best position to do that ourselves without the state telling us, all the details associated with it. And PA 2129, sets a whole bunch of restrictions. If you opt out of that provision, as we have done for what you just did, for the parking, and you did in 2017 for the temporary healthcare structures. If you opt out, you are then in a position, we, the city, are in a position to adopt our own regulations, things that, conditions that or restrictions that meet the needs of our residents and are based on what we see is going on here, which I, again, think is a better opportunity to do that than to just go by the state's new law. So if we don't opt out by January 1st of next year, then their regulations will apply. Up until then, they, or action by you on this petition, there is no provision for accessory apartments in the city of Danbury. So again, the Planning Commission has issued a positive recommendation. I could also tell you that one of the state groups that's kind of watching what's going on, across the state, and asked me, for some rationale behind why we were opting out, why I was proposing that the city opt out. And when I explained about the Affordable Housing Commission Committee and the AHB plan, and to consider our own needs and demographics and economic conditions, the response was, that makes complete sense. And this is from an organization who's kind of spearheading some of the things that you've seen come out in PA 2129, and particularly related to housing and affordability. So I take that as their support. We are definitely looking at it. That affordable housing plan will be out to the public within a month or so for public comment. And again, one of the strategies would be to bring back some form of regulation of accessory apartments. May not be across the board in every zone. There may be some other restrictions, but as a group studying affordability and housing options in the city of Danbury, I think we need to bring that back here. So with that, I will take any comments from the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Commission members, any questions or comments of Ms. Calitro? Mr. Coelho, please.
One quick question. What's the name of that state group that had contacted you, Sharon?
It's called Desegregate Connecticut.
Interesting. Okay. And the other question I had is if we opt out and we don't put something in place before that January 1st date of 2022 or whatever, 23, whatever it is, we don't by default have to opt back in, do we? Because we don't have our
No,
own.
once you're out, you're out.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corlo. Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Commission
Thank
members, any other commission members asking questions of Ms. Calitro at this time?
Yeah.
Mr. Hawley.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. David, we'll go after you, after
ahead.
Mr. Hawley. Mr. Hawley.
All right. Yep.
Sure.
So sure. Yeah. My question
Sure.
was, yep, it's my turn. Is when would that like other plan that you're trying to create come before us? Is it a possibility we'd be able to compare the two at the same time? Like, because we don't need to fully opt out if we choose to do that until January. So is it possible like in the fall we can have both look at both different plans and compare and contrast before opting out and have a little more flexibility with that? Or
So the affordable housing plan is, it's a plan that's going to recommend strategies to increase the affordable housing options in the city of Danbury to meet the goals of the plan. It's not going to have the definitive language in there for a new accessory apartment provision. What it will say was consider adopting or consider amending the regulations to include or bring back some form of an accessory apartment provision. That's what the affordable housing plan will say. Again, we're drafting it. It'll go through the hearing process. At the end of that, the affordable housing plan will then get incorporated into the plan of conservation and development, which we also think we're going to have by sometime this year. Those two things will align, and we will then proceed to draft some regulations. There are models and restrictions in other communities who have accessory apartment regulations that we're looking at it, will that work in Danbury? What's the benefit of it? But again, I think it's prudent for the city of Danbury to opt out and not kind of just wait and see what happens. The details of that section of the regs, I don't think, as a planner, I'm not comfortable with. And again, I think we can do it better ourselves. So let us do that, and it'll align with the strategies and recommendations and the planning process for how we're going to do many things. And I think they will all align. And yeah, I think that's obviously that's a better process.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley. Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Anything else of any commission members of Ms. Calitro at this time? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Councilman Rotello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Paul Rotello for the record, 13 Linden Place, Danbury. It's a little tough to follow Sharon because she really laid this out pretty concisely and concretely. I think I can say a couple of things about this that concern me. To begin with, the state language is indicative to some extent of a long-term trend that we're seeing in the state now that goes back to what you guys just did with the character language, and that is to eliminate as much as possible either racial or economic town-wide redlining, so-called redlining. And these are problems that the state has identified. Activists, activist legislators within the state have identified in certain more suburban and ex-urban communities surrounding cities like New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport, places like that, but not the cities themselves. It's sometimes difficult to write statewide legislation that accepts those communities that are already behaving well, and at the same time, putting the onus on communities that may not be. But that's kind of where we find ourselves in Danbury tonight. We actually have, if if a lack of diversity, either racial or economic, is a problem, this is not a particular problem that Danbury has vis-a-vis the towns that it is surrounded by. We are the most diverse city in Connecticut, and our economic level for affordable housing is higher than the state minimum, while we are a hole in a donut surrounded by towns. And I'm not exaggerating. If the number is 10%, I think we're up to 12 or close to 12. We're surrounded by towns who have numbers of like 1.28%, 85% lower than us. And I think the language in this statute that you guys are debating tonight, it was targeted more towards those communities than to an exemplar like Danbury. I mean, if anybody should be doing anything, other communities in Connecticut should be looking to us to see how to avoid the pitfalls that this particular language, not in Sharon's petition, but in the state petition, is trying to solve. We've solved these problems. I don't mean that we can go back to bed. It's a work in progress. But the city of Danbury, on its own, has come up with solutions that are more practical, and by that I mean more successful than other communities in Connecticut that the state language was singling out. It would be a mistake to allow the state of Connecticut to dictate a one-size-fits-all program that probably would not work in Connecticut if a measure of success is the fact that we are as diverse as we are and as economically open as we are. And we are. I'm actually on the Commission for Affordable Housing. And I'll tell you, we're looking at a lot more than just accessory apartments. We're looking at higher density downtown. We're looking at going up, literally going up higher, higher density, more in smaller places and higher elevations, meaning more stacked up on a lot. There's a lot of ways to increase housing in a community that is respectful to the community. And perhaps in a town like, I don't know, it's maybe a Litchfield County town where there's a regular inventory of houses on 5, 10, 15 acre lots. You could put accessory apartments on a lot like that without particularly affecting the what's the word I'm looking for, without particularly affecting the historical nature of the community, while at the same time adding houses. In a city like Danbury, our single family zones are edged up against multifamily zones, RMF3, RMF4, CNN5, it was previously mentioned. And we would find ourselves, or you guys would find yourselves, I guess it would probably just do an end run around zoning. The Planning Commission would find itself looking at petitions, putting accessory units on Deer Hill, on front lawns of Deer Hill, in between houses on Deer Hill, behind houses, Long Ridge, Briar Ridge. And I think the immediate effect in the neighborhood would be outrage. And the total increase in inventory would probably be less than other more appropriate ways of solving this problem as the city moves forward. I think there could even be a land rush. I think with inflation what it is, and the fact that banks are not particularly being too forthcoming in terms of interest rates, people with money might decide investing in accessory apartments would be a smart move. Could take $250,000, build one on the front lawn of a house on Deer Hill, and immediately have a place that would be tracking inflation for the next 10 or 15 years. You wouldn't have to worry about your money dwindling every year with inflation at 5, 10, 15%. It would be a smart move. It would be fiduciarily responsible to your investors to do that. And I think that if this became an as right, it would be unbelievably destructive and next to impossible to stop. I think this commission would need to think very seriously about the citywide effect that this particular state mandate would have, and also to understand that if you don't opt out, it becomes mandatory, and when that date passes, you cannot opt out. Even if all of these issues come to pass, And I think that they would start to come to pass pretty quickly. So my suggestion would be to accept the petition from the director, opt out, and then look at a way of increasing density, if that's where the zoning commission wants to go, that's much more appropriate to the city, and let some of these other communities that maybe have the room to build accessory apartments, and perhaps the communities that this statute really was intended to address, let them take a whack at it. Let Danbury continue to be a leader in affordable housing and diversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rotella. Commission members, any questions of Councilman Rotella at this time? Anyone else? Mr. Sotero, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. This is kind of all new to me, so I'll do the best I can. I think.
That's okay. Just relax and take your time, and you're free to say whatever you'd like.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Haddad, Zoning Commission members. My name is Charlie Sotero. I'm a lifelong resident of Danbury, residing at 27 Darrell Avenue. I rise tonight to support Planning Director Sharon Calitro's petition to opt out of certain provisions regarding accessory apartments contained in Public Act 21-29, Section 6, subsections A to D. A state mandated default provision allowing for accessory apartments fails to take into consideration communities, neighborhoods, neighborhood nuances, historic traits, physical plots, and other factors that can only be evaluated by local communities and planning authorities. To issue a carte blanche provision to all municipalities, or is also known as a default provision, can be detrimental to a community, I feel. The one-size-fits-all logic by the state of Connecticut legislator is not well-founded, in my opinion. The staff report contained in the agenda carefully outlines the reasons for this opt-out provision language in our zoning regulations. Historic references made in this report that cites in the past abuse of an application regarding accessory apartments. Zoning is like a puzzle. The pieces must fit together. It's a plan. I have full faith in the vision and opinions of our planning director, Calitro, and her staff. Also at this time, if I could just take a moment to pass along a positive comment regarding the commission and the planning staff and its presentations of the public agendas. Very thorough and organized are your agendas, and very friendly to the taxpayers. I do appreciate that. Thank you all for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Sotero. You sounded like you were pretty good at it, not inexperienced at all. Commission members, any questions of Mr. Sotero at this time? Thank you, Mr. Sotero. I see a hand by Mr. Steinberg. Please unmute and take your time. There you go. Nope, you're back mute again.
How's that?
There you go. You're good. Thank you. Go
Okay.
ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not in opposition to the proposal by the state of Connecticut, but I'm not terribly much in favor of it as well because of some confusion, which I'd like to see this board straighten out, and I believe you're able to do it. And Sharon, I believe you'll be able to do it too. This is what's known as the granny pods. Call it what you want, and it talks about in the rules as I see them that this would apply to people who want to add space for family members, for seniors, for singles, whatever it might be. But it wouldn't be something that would bring in people from outside to those properties, if I'm correct. And I think provisions like that make some sense. As I get older, it seems to me that I might be very much happier with a smaller place without having to do the lawns and everything else, and let my children have the house, and we can be close to them and have time with them, and the security of having family on the same property. And I understand that may be easy to abuse, but I think that if we are going to look at this in a way that would benefit citizens of Danbury as we grow older, it would make sense to be able to do something of this nature on our properties. And again, if you have 2 acres of land, you can build a small unit, you can add to a garage, you can put a second story on a garage, whatever it is, that wouldn't interfere too much with the visual impact that was referred to before in building a house on the front yard in Deer Hill Avenue. I don't think that's the way you'd want to do it, but I think there are ways to do it that might work, and it would require a good look and a good plan to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Steinberg at this time, commission members? Thank you, Mr. Steinberg. Anyone else
You're
wishing
welcome.
to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? I see a hand of Councilman Dwayne E. Perkins. Please, Councilman Perkins.
I'm not muted now, right?
You're good. Yep, the mic's off. You're good.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Commissioners, Dwayne Perkins, 22 Main Street, member of the Danbury City Council's 5th Ward. We, as council members, protect neighborhoods. That's why I'm in support of opting out of this state mandate. Imagine cluster housing and the like popping up on what has been already mentioned, some of the exclusive neighborhoods in our city. We already talked about Deer Hill, we talked about Long Ridge. There's some places out on the southern border of Connecticut. There are also places that you would consider around Candlewood Lake with cluster housing. We as a council already voted to opt out of the parking, which is one of the first steps in this large puzzle. I think that as a community, we are more suited to determine the direction of our own fate and not succumb to the state mandates that they're trying to put before us right now. So I do support the decision to opt out of these harmful community mandates. Thanks, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you, Councilman Perkins. Commission members, any questions of Councilman Perkins at this time? I don't see any. You're off for the rest of the night, Councilman.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anyone willing to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone in opposition to this petition? Anyone wanting to speak in opposition to this petition? Commission members, anybody have any further questions of Ms. Calitro at this time? I don't see any hands. I guess, Mr. Coelho, did you have a comment?
No, I was gonna make a motion to approve. Sorry, Ted.
Sounds good. You want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes.
It's a motion made by Mr. Coelho to close the public hearing. Is there a second? Second by Attorney Fay. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I did not hear or see any opposition. So this public hearing is closed. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask if
Yes,
the
Ms.
commission would be willing to move it to old business for discussion and possible action?
Commission members, anyone here willing to move this, to make a motion to move this to number 2 under old business for discussion and possible action for this evening? Mr. Coelho, I see your hand. Is that a yes?
Yes, I'll make a motion.
There's a motion made by Mr. Coelho to move this to number 2 under old business for discussion and possible action. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Fay, seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Not seeing or hearing any. So this is going to go to number 2 under old business for discussion possible action. Thank you. So moving right along, there's an application of Sugar Hollow Realty LLC, property owners for Nissan of Danbury LLC, 13 Sugar Hollow Road, G17008, for a certificate of location approval for a motor vehicle new car dealer's license in the CG20 zone. So give me 1 second to organize here. And I believe Attorney Beecher is here, but let me see what I have first. Attorney Beecher, anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Yes, I would, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Good
Thank you.
evening, everyone. My name is Tom Beecher from the Collins Hannafin Law Firm, and I represent the applicant Nissan of Danbury LLC. With me tonight is Mike Matheson from Nissan. As the name suggests, Sugar Hollow Realty LLC is the property owner. Nissan of Danbury LLC will be the dealership operator and is also the entity that's applying to the state on the K-7 form that I submitted to you in conjunction with this application. And just for your information, they're sister corporations. We're here for a new car dealership approval pursuant to section 10A1 of your regulations. I filed the application for this certificate of location approval along with my cover letter. I also filed a copy of the revised site plan approval from the department, which was issued a year ago. As you can imagine, between supply chain issues, chip shortages, and so forth, we have purposely delayed this step in the process, but here we are. As I indicated in my letter, the Danbury EIC also approved this project a year ago. The wetlands on this property are at the very far rear. This property is 7.9 acres. It's the former location of the Sports Authority and the Bed Bath & Beyond stores. I gave you a Google aerial photo and a site photo to give you an overview of this property. It's a large site. This is a developed property with existing parking and an existing 78,000 square foot building. The showroom area will be approximately 30,000 square feet, and the service area is approximately 36,000 square feet with 15 service bays and lifts. The approved site plan and the approval states that car inventory must remain in the parking spaces and not on grass islands and other areas of the property where vehicles should not go. As you know, and as you can see, this particular property abuts the Danbury Airport. And as you drive south on Sugar Hollow Road, you'll see 3 more auto dealerships in succession: Danbury Porsche, Danbury Audi, and Danbury Volkswagen. So I guess it's time we had a non-German dealership on this strip. There are also other automobile establishments just around the corner on Myrie Brook, some of which have just recently been approved by the Planning Commission. So with respect to the neighborhood, this is an excellent fit. The regulations state that the commission must determine that the location is in a zone where this use is permitted. It is in the CG20 zone, so this is a use that's permitted as of right. Obviously, the department reached that same conclusion when they approved the site plan for this particular property. So I would just say to you, there's no health, safety, and welfare issues. The site is a great fit. We don't want to use it's within the character of the neighborhood, but it is a great fit within the neighborhood. And so I would just ask for your approval of this location. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the reference of the approval is a March 29th, 2021 letter from Jennifer Eminger, Deputy Planning Director, which is part of our exhibits and public record for this evening.
That's correct.
Thank you, Attorney Beecher. Commission members, any questions of Attorney Beecher at this time? Mr. Jowdy's hand is raised. Please go, Mr. Jowdy.
Attorney Beecher, you mentioned a little bit about the parking and disturbance and going on grass areas and stuff. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? I'm concerned a lot of times car dealers will go in and they'll grow out of their space very quickly. I'll give the floor to you to comment.
Sure. There's over 225 parking spots on this particular site. The approved site plan shows 186 of those dedicated for new cars or for cars for sale. There's also, as I mentioned, a section of the building where cars will be displayed inside. So there's plenty of parking also for the service facility, for customers. And like I said, the plan actually calls for 186 dedicated spots for cars that are for sale. And so that site plan, Mr. Jowdy, is the teeth that Mr. Harity has if he goes out there and sees cars parked on the islands or back off on the grass or what have you, because the site plan approval also states that vehicles shall be confined to the designated areas on the site. So there's teeth in the approval so that can easily be enforced.
Right, so the so-called green space or whatever you want to call it, where the grass areas are and so forth, are not going to have vehicles parked on it. That's not going to be altered at all.
That's correct. That's correct.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, for the record.
Ms. Calitro, yes.
Yeah, the site plan, as indicated by Attorney Beecher, actually has a prohibition against parking on there. So as he indicated, Sean wouldn't really need any discretion to go out and say, get the cars off the island, you're in violation of your approved site plan, or you can't park in an area that isn't designated for parking on that plan. There's actually some notes on the bottom left-hand corner of that plan.
Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Any other questions of Attorney Beecher at this time? Commission members, Mr. Hawley, please.
Yeah, thank you. So Attorney Beecher, I used to work at Bed Bath & Beyond. I worked there for like 6 years. I was very familiar with the area. And one thing I did see multiple times was car accidents occurring on that one-way entrance. Has there been any kind of consideration for changing that? Most of the time it was people trying to exit onto Sugar Hollow Road directly. And I saw some pretty nasty things a few times. So I was just curious if there's any kind of consideration towards that.
I honestly don't know whether we changed that configuration or not.
No.
We didn't.
No.
There you go.
There's the answer. There's also, you can also go out on Wibbling Road, which is a relief valve of some sort, but most people won't.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley, Ms. Calitro, Mr. Beecher. Anything else of Attorney Beecher at this time? Any other questions of Attorney Beecher? Mr. Coelho.
Just to clarify, Chairman, the letter from Jennifer on March 29th, there's a revised, or there's a site plan. There hasn't been any changes to that from what I can see. Is that the same site plan that was approved back in March?
That's correct. I think it's the revised to March 9th was the last revision date of the site plan, which predates Jennifer's final approval.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure. So there's no subsequent or revisions or any changes to that?
No.
Thank you. Thank
you, Commissioner Coelho, Attorney Beecher. Attorney Fay, did you have a question? Attorney Fay.
Yeah, and I guess a question. Attorney Beecher used the word character a couple of times, character of the neighborhood. Are we to ignore? Oh, okay. I just didn't know if we were to just ignore that.
No, I was having a little fun, but obviously.
Oh, no, that's okay. I didn't know you were so funny.
Gotta have some fun once in a while. Obviously, you're going to look at the health, safety, and welfare. I mean, obviously, it's a good fit for the neighborhood. It fits in with the physical characteristics of the neighborhood. It fits in with the other neighbors in the neighborhood. So
I just thought for a clean record, perhaps, we should just say that we're ignoring that word just so that we have a clean record. God forbid there was an appeal.
Right.
Thank you, Attorney Fay, Attorney Beecher. Anything else, commission members, at this time?
Just one more question.
Sure, Mr. Coelho, absolutely.
The unloading, obviously, this is a pretty big dealership, so the unloading and maybe loading of cars off of, trailers and so forth, is that going to take place on site? I'm sure they have enough room to do that. I just want to make sure that there wasn't anything of that nature wasn't happening off site or on, say, Wibbling Road or Sugar Hollow.
No, it's going to happen on site. Unfortunately, like you acknowledged, it's a large site, but the site plan approval specifically prohibits any offloading or loading of any trucks on the roads. It has to be on our site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, anything else of Attorney Beecher at this time? Mr. Malillo, your hand? Yes, please, Mr. Malillo.
Yeah, just for Attorney Beecher, just for clarification, as I'm looking at the aerial map that you have in here, the Google map, it looks as though that the space that this is occupying is larger than any one dealership with the Danbury Porsche, Audi, or Danbury Volkswagen. It might be close to the size of all three combined. Would that be? I just as we're trying to think about how many cars are going to be on the property for sale and the logistics of the lay of the land and loading and unloading. I'm just thinking maybe that can help ease our minds. Can you just confirm that the property that we're looking at is larger than the other three, than any single dealership adjacent to it?
Well, I mean, just by looks, yes, I would agree with you, but I don't have the actual acreage of all those other properties. But clearly there's a lot more room. There's a lot more space. There's a lot more parking spaces. And again, a lot of vehicles will also be in this 78,000 square foot building.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malillo, Attorney Beecher. Any other commission members have any questions at this time? Not seeing any at this time. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Mr. Chairman?
I see Councilman Rotello again. Please go ahead, Councilman Rotello. I hear somebody has a mic on. If everyone can mute your mics, please. We're getting some background noise. I see a yellow box. Councilman Perkins. Your box. There you go. Thank you. Attorney, Councilman Rotello, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Beecher gave a thorough and good summary of the situation on Sugar Hollow and the surrounding airport properties. At some point, like 1,000 years ago, we had hoped that most of the undeveloped property around the airport would wind up being devoted exclusively to airport-related businesses, but that ship sailed, flew, rolled away, whatever, years ago. And that's pretty much done. If it's going to be airport-related, it's probably going to be within the confines of the loop, inside the loop, and not exterior to it, inside Myrie Brook, not outside. And I'd say east or west, but it's a circle, so it's impossible to define in that fashion. But I think you guys know what I'm talking about. And cars historically have been down there forever. I think Fair Cadillac Oldsmobile in the 70s, or at least the 80s, used that particular parcel before Bed Bath & Beyond and Sports Authority came in as an overflow lot for their admittedly tiny dealership on Park Avenue, where Civics preschool is now. I think that actually started life out as like a Packard dealership, and it was always too small. This particular parcel has really never been used for airport business, so it's not something that rises to a concern of mine. It's not as if we're going to lose something that was for an airport. And frankly, you wouldn't really want to put airport business at Candlewood Lake or a million other places, Newtown Road, where you could conceivably put a car dealership. If it's going to be related to the airport, it pretty much needs to be at the airport. But this one does not rise to that level of concern because it's never really been used for airport business in the past. So as the representative for the 6th Ward, where this is, I don't have an issue. Good luck to the business. Welcome them to Danbury, and I hope that they're very successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rotello. Commission members, any questions of Councilman Rotello? That was, I believe you're correct, on Park Avenue. It used to be a Packard dealership. And also this property before Sports Authority used to be the old original Castro convertible factory.
Okay,
Yeah, way, way, way back. Not airport related.
but the
Anyway,
first to conquer living space.
yes, that's correct. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Not hearing any or seeing any. Attorney Beecher, do you have any final comments you'd like to make?
Well, if the commission's amenable, I would love to see you move it to old business after you close the hearing.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
see what happens. You done? Anything else? You all
That's
set?
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission members, that's all we're going to hear tonight. Is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Motion made by Attorney Fay to close the public hearing, second by Commissioner Jowdy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? This public hearing is closed. Commission members, what's your pleasure? Is anyone in the mood to move this to number 3 under old business?
I move this to old business to be acted on tonight.
Attorney Fay is making a motion to move this to old business number 3. So discussion, possible action, second by Mr. Coelho. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Not hearing or seeing any opposition. This will be number 3 under old business for discussion and possible action. Thank you. There are no continuations of any public hearings. We took care of number 1 under old business for discussion, possible action. Number 2 under old business for discussion of possible action is the petition of the City of Danbury by Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend Section 3C of the zoning regulations, amendment pursuant to Public Act 2129, opt out of the requirement for the allowance of accessory apartments as of right on each lot that contains a single-family dwelling. The public hearing was open on March 8th, 2022, and it was closed on March 8th, 2022. Commission members, what's your pleasure?
Make a motion.
Hey, Chairman.
Mr. Coelho.
No, go ahead. Milan wanted to speak. Sorry, go ahead.
Mr. David.
No, I wanted to make a motion to approve to opt out, and also at a later date create our own regulation for accessory apartments.
Commissioner David, do you have any reasons for that? Would you say that the city of Danbury is best positioned to address the housing needs of its residents based on local demographics, housing conditions, and economic circumstances? Additionally, right now, the city has an affordable housing plan underway and a new plan of conservation development that would relate to new housing opportunities. Does that sound like reasons for your?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second, Mr. Coelho? Do you want to second that?
Yes.
Thank you. Commission members, any discussion? Is a motion made with reasons by Commissioner David and a second by Commissioner Coelho? Any discussion?
This needs a 2/3 vote, right? I was looking over the law and it said it has to pass by 2/3.
No, this is a simple majority.
Okay.
There was a favorable by the Planning Commission was in favor of it. And we have, what do we have here tonight?
7.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7. Is that correct?
Yes.
To count, we have 7. That's what I got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 3, 4. We've had 7 all night. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments? Any other discussion? A yes is yes. A no is no. Mr. David,
Yes.
Mr. Coelho,
Yes.
Attorney Fay,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Jowdy,
Yes.
Mr. Malillo,
yes,
and I will vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it adds up again. 7-0. That petition is approved.
Thank
We also have a number 3 this evening under old business for discussion possible action. It is an application of Sugar Hollow Realty LLC, property owners for Nissan of Danbury LLC, 13 Sugar Hollow Road, G17008, for a certificate of location approval for a motor vehicle new car dealer's license in the CG20 zone. Let me put this over here. Commission members, what's your pleasure on this petition? Oh, that's, did I mention that public hearing was open on March 8th, 2022, and it was closed on March 8th, 2022? Commission members, anyone looking to put a motion forward on this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Coelho beat you,
Yeah, go
Mr.
ahead.
David,
Go
this
ahead.
time. Mr. Coelho, go ahead, make your motion.
I'd like to make a
That's
motion to
okay,
approve.
go ahead.
Like to make a motion to approve the petition for Sugar Hollow, Bruce Bennett, Nissan dealership of Danbury, 13 Sugar Hollow Road.
There's a motion made by Commissioner Coelho. Is there a second, Mr. David? Not Mr. David, did you want to second
I'll
that?
second it.
Second from another commission member?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. I'd love to.
Second by Mr. David.
Point of order. Did Mr. Colello mean Nissan of Danbury? I believe he said Bruce Bennett.
Yeah, I was looking at the old site plan, Nissan of Danbury LLC.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawley. Motion
Mr.
made.
Chairman,
Yes.
excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if just want to add, if you can amend your motion with reasons for the location approval.
I'm sorry, say again, Ms. Politro.
For reasons, to add reasons for the approval of the location.
Commissioner Coelho, do you have any reasons that you wanted to attach to that?
It's fitting the use. It's been approved previously. And also recommended in Jennifer Emmerger's report on March 29th, 2021.
Thank you. Commissioner David, you still want to keep your second in place now that you heard the reasons? Yes, he does.
Yes, because I also add it's in the best interest and not detrimental to the health and welfare of the citizens of Danbury.
Commissioner Coelho, would you be welcome to add that as another reason to your motion to approve?
Sure.
Thank you. It's a motion with reasons by Commissioner Coelho, second by Commissioner David. Any discussion? All those in favor? Well, let's do it by roll call. Yes is yes and no is no. Commissioner Coelho,
Yes.
Commissioner David,
Yes.
Attorney Fay,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Jowdy. Where are you? Mr. Jowdy, just shake your head up, yes or no? Okay, he's shaking his head, yes. Commissioner Malillo,
yes,
I will vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That matches up 7-0. Congratulations. Good luck. Best of luck to you over there.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Where did my agenda go? And thank you, commission members. There's nothing under new business. There is nothing under correspondence, but there is another matter, and that's a revision to the official zoning map. And I'm going to have Ms. Calitro at this time explain what this is about. Ms. Calitro?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joanne, can you share the screen? Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so just some background. So as many of you were on the commission a couple years ago when there was a petition to amend the official zoning map for some parcels up on Whitney Avenue. During research into the history of that project, I uncovered an error on the official zoning map. And during testimony on that application, the attorney for the applicant also acknowledged and agreed that there was a mistake made to when the zoning map was changed. In 1988, let me just grab my, okay, can everybody see that?
No,
No.
but we're trying very hard to see it. We just can't.
Hold on. Let me just, oh, maybe I have to share my screen. Yes. Yeah, that would help. Okay, there you go.
There we go.
Okay, everybody see it now?
Yes,
Okay,
thank
so
you.
this is Newtown Road and this is Whitney Avenue. A couple of years back, we were looking at an application to change this parcel, which was K12254. What we uncovered back in 1988 was that this parcel at the time didn't have an individual tax assessor lot. So that petition to rezone, it was K12255 right here, 56, 57, and an unnumbered parcel, which is now K12254. The net result on the decision of the zoning commission at that time was to approve 55 and 56 to be rezoned from CG20, I'm sorry, from RA8 to CG20, and deny these two parcels in the back. And for some reason, and I think it had to do with when the deed, I mean, none of us were there, but when the deeds were submitted in, there may have been some confusion, and the line, instead of, I'm gonna see if I can, instead of following this line, oops, and this around 12257, it was pushed to the back. So it looks like, and has been on the zoning map, that K12257 is actually in the CG20 zone. It is not, it's in the RA8 zone. And again, that, I mean, I have the approval letters sitting right in front of me, actually. There was an approval letter for 55 and 56 and a denial letter for 57 and this unnumbered parcel. And what I'd like to do is get you to approve by a motion for me to change the official zoning map, recognizing that just, it's like a Scribner's error. We have changed, we don't change the zoning map, depends on time, how many actions the commission takes during the course of a year, but we don't necessarily change the map every year. We haven't done it in 2 years because not much has been done. I recently updated it as a result, I had it updated as a result of your action on those parcels on Federal Road, if you recall, that went from IL 40 to CG20. And before I went to print the new map, and give you all new copies, I wanted to correct this mistake that's kind of been looming. So I will, if anybody's confused or has any questions, I will obviously take them, but that I'd just like you to confirm and recognize that and get your authority to go ahead and do that based on the research. If you recall, Attorney Marcus, who represented the people that wanted to put the daycare center back here, he did acknowledge that that was a mistake, that was a zoning map mistake. So I'd like to fix that.
Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Commission members, any questions that you have of Ms. Calitro on this? Does everybody get the gist of what's going on here? We did have a recent petition, as she just mentioned, from Attorney Marcus, I think was the attorney on that. And it came up, I don't know if I should say it came up again or if somebody reiterated it. I think it was newly discovered. But as Ms. Calitro stated, we have all the necessary documents that should not be there, but the map does show it there. Any questions?
Yeah, again, Mr. Chairman, oh, here's my little annotation. Let me see if I could draw it in. See this lot? It should come down. Oh my gosh, my hand is not steady. It should look like that. Instead of, so we just want to put K11157 back in the RA8 zone, which is how the Zoning Commission 1988 left it. They did not approve a petition to move that into CG20. So.
Got it. Thank you. Did you choose green or did green come up by default?
Green came up with my,
All right.
I guess unless you go really fast, it looks like a 2-year-old's line. So, sorry about that.
Commission members, any questions of Ms. Calitro at this time? I think the best thing to do is to give her the authorization to do this, and then we should do that by making a motion of this body for her to go ahead and do that. So can I have a motion for her to do that? Do I see Attorney Fay? Attorney Fay makes a
Okay.
motion.
I would just make a motion to rectify the zoning map so that it's in accordance with what the zoning commission did back in 1988.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? Motion made by Attorney Fay. Is there a second?
A second.
Is a second by Commissioner
Second.
David. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
I did not see any opposition. I did not hear any opposition. Ms. Calitro, you have unanimous approval from this commission to correct that map.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioner members? Anything under other matters? Anybody else have anything under other matters?
Mr. Haddad,
Yes, Commissioner Malillo.
am I correct in assuming that the only thing that would potentially be on the agenda for March 22nd would be the discussion regarding the character definition?
Let's think about that. Ms. Calitro and Ms. Reed, anything come in? Do you know of anything coming in?
From an
Or do you have
application
anything in hand?
standpoint, from an application standpoint, no, but we did discuss a session with legal counsel.
Oh, has that been decided for that date?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so to answer Commissioner Malillo, we are going to have a training session and or I don't know if we want to call it training, what's not what the state recognizes as a training session. But we are going to have Corporation Counsel come in and give their every 2-year training session.
Primer on zoning.
So there is
Refresh.
going, yeah, refresh. So there is going to be something else on that agenda on the 22nd, Commissioner Malillo.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anybody else? Anything else under other matters? Other matters, not hearing any. Does anybody want to make a motion at 9:09 to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Thank
make
you.
the motion. Okay,
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Mr. Coelho. You know, while we're on the subject here, which we're really not on the subject, Commissioner David, I think that there's a delay in your receiving and broadcasting back to us.
Hooked up with these guys.
Well, I'm in Florida, so it probably takes some time, yeah.
Are you using AOL dial-up?
I think it,
No, I'm in Florida, brother. I'm in Florida.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. So there's a motion to adjourn by Ms. Fay, second by Mr. David. All those favors, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, let
Aye.
the record show at 9:10. Thank you, Commissioner members.
Did you aye?
Thank you, everyone. We're done.
I'm not part of it.
thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Councilman